Thank you for joining us today for the webinar on frauds and scams, awareness and prevention. Before we start, I wanted to introduce myself. My name is Jessica Lawson. I'm a public education coordinator with the Alzheimer's Society Southwest Partners. I would like to begin by acknowledging the Indigenous peoples of all the lands that we are on today. While we are meeting on a virtual platform, I would like to acknowledge the counties of Elgin, Middlesex, and Oxford, that they lie on lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples from the beginning. In particular, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, the Attawandaron, Wendat, and Ojibwe Chippewa peoples. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous peoples have made both in shaping and strengthening our communities, in particular, and our province and country as a whole. So before we start, I have a little business to go over relating to the webinar experience. Please note that all cameras are turned off and microphones are muted for the webinar. This event is being recorded, and the recording will be provided in the future on the webinar archive page of our website. Please feel free to ask questions throughout the presentation. If you have a question, please indicate and type your question in the Q&A box located at the bottom of your screen as seen here. The moderator will read them out to the panelists. We will also have a formal Q&A session at the end if you have any other additional questions you would like to ask. If you would like to submit a question anonymously, please click the Send Anonymously box before clicking the Send button. And should you have any technical concerns, please type in the chat box and I will be happy to help you. You may need to move your cursor to see the Zoom controls and icons. We have also enabled the upvote feature in Zoom, which allows people to see all questions being asked and move the most popular question to the top of the list. If you see a similar question posted by someone else, you can simply vote on the question by clicking the thumbs up icon underneath the question, as seen here in the yellow highlight. Once the icon is clicked, the question will move up the list. So now I have the pleasure of welcoming our panelists. Detective Constable Jeffrey Johnson has been with the London Police Service for 23 years. He previously worked in the Headquarters Detention Unit, followed by 17 years as a uniformed patrol officer, and his last 4 years have been in the Financial Crime Unit, where he has specialized in elder abuse. So welcome, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thanks very much for having me there, Jessica. I'll get my screen up here. Make sure everyone can see it. There we go. And can we see that, everyone?
Looks good.
Looks good. Okay. So as Jessica said, I'm Jeff Johnson. I'm a detective constable with our London Police Financial Crime Unit. We were just speaking before. This is actually my final day in the unit. I'm sadly moving over to our training division. So you guys get my final presentation, so we'll try and not have any tears, and we'll get through this here. So fraud, honestly, when I came over to the unit a little over 4 years ago, my capacity of what I knew was counterfeit money. It's just that was kind of what you grew up, counterfeit $5 bill, or you get a $10 bill. It looked a little bit suspicious. Little did I know that the realm of fraud, not only the dollar values assigned, but also the global aspect, even affecting us right down to here in London, Ontario. We have money moving all over North America, all over the globe. It's getting more convoluted. It's different tactics being used, and hopefully we can help negate some of those with our presentation today. Our unit, just before I get into it, is comprised of, we have 2 detectives, 5 detective constables, and then we have constables doing secondary investigation, an intake officer and our telephone intake officer. So when you do call in, you won't get myself or one of my coworkers. Initially, you'll speak with one of the intake or secondary officers. They'll just help kind of navigate what needs to happen, what documents, what information we need that'll then aid us in our investigation. So without further ado, what is a fraud? I'm not going to bore you here with the long, convoluted criminal code definition. Because truthfully, I probably don't understand if you read that word for word. But at the end of the day, what we need to think is fraud is just a theft with a lie and a smile. So if I walk over and I take something off of one of your desks or your table, that's a theft. Now, if I use some sort of coercion or lie or, false promise perhaps to obtain that item, that's kind of where it starts to walk into the fraud realm. It's probably the easiest definition I've ever seen. And the reason we put the smile in is quite often our victims, they feel good when the fraud is happening, when they're unaware. They're helping somebody out. Maybe they've won a prize or a reward, or they've purchased something at a great price, so they feel good. It's not until after that, obviously, they realize the fraud has occurred that smile kind of unfortunately goes away. Some of the frauds that we will cover and that we see on a regular basis, you name it, it can be used in a fraud as a mechanism to do a fraud in some sort of capacity. And quite often they will layer them. We've started to see, like identity thefts being used for mortgages, people selling homes out from underneath people. We had a big rash of those in Toronto about this time last year. So yeah, it's getting, like I said early in the beginning of the presentation, it's a lot more convoluted. They're layering these frauds. So it just makes our job more challenging. It makes our citizens of our communities, their job to kind of make sure they're not being captured or caught up in a fraud. It makes it more challenging as well. I spoke about kind of the global aspect and the amount of money that I just didn't have any idea occurred. And when I came to the office, I think one of my first frauds, I saw a gentleman had lost about $10,000 to $15,000, and it blew my mind. I was like that's a huge number to lose. But very quickly, do you realize that number is so minute? We're seeing multi-million-dollar frauds just right here in London, with one of the largest 4.5 million that we've seen through our office. Just to put it into context, these are the 2021, 2022 fraud stats from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre. These are frauds in Canada. We don't have the 23 yet. They do it quarterly. So the last update, I believe, was April, but we are trending. As you can see, the number of reports are going down. The victim numbers are going down, but the value is going up, which is a scary thought because it means less frauds, but people are losing more money. You can see there the amount that was recovered last year out of $530 million of loss in Canada reported, only 2.4 million was recovered. I don't know what that percentage is, but it's very, very small. The scariest part of these numbers, we can all agree, $530 million is a huge number, more than any of us will ever see in our lifetime. The average, though, is about 5 to 10% of frauds get reported. So again, my math's not great, but 530 million quickly becomes in excess of $5 billion in loss, probably last year, which is, a number that's, so far out there, it's incomparable. Question, yes.
I just have a question in the chat.
Yeah.
I know a senior woman who lost 200,000 in romance scam. Can she recoup any of that money?
So yeah, I talk about some of the romance scams further on, but essentially at the end of the day, our long arm of the law, so to speak, only reaches border to border and water to water. So when money leaves the country, most of the cases we see anyways with these romance scams, money is sent via cryptocurrency or Western Union, and it leaves the country. We don't really have the ability to go to another country withdraw that money. We've had some success with like US because we do have Homeland Security that we interact with, but typically money goes overseas to another country. It's literally almost 0% of the time we recoup money. And I don't just mean London Police, that's just law enforcement in general. As you can see on that slide, you know, if we do the 10% or 90% there, $5 billion, only $2.5 million was recovered out of $5 billion plus dollars. So the money, typically law enforcement, our job isn't recovery of funds, it's holding people accountable, or trying to anyways. But yeah, a lot of times though, to answer that question, short is a lot of times that money's gone as soon as you send it. Now it speak to us needing to know and fact checking before we send money and stuff a little bit later in the presentation. But yeah, great question, thanks. Biggest frauds we kind of see mass market. It's they're exactly what they sound like. It's to hit the masses. We kind of try to break them down into different groups so we can keep track of what it is, but there's usually some sort of advance fee deposit that is requested on these frauds. The biggest one that we've seen over the last probably 2 years is the grandparent scam or emergency scam. I'm sure most people are kind of familiar with it. They're constantly in the paper. We have people losing large sums of money. The scam in itself is pretty simple for the scammers to pull off. It's a simple phone call. You know, mom, grandma, grandpa, if it's male, female, they never will offer up their name, or very rarely. You answer, hey, Jeff, is that you? Yeah, it's me, grandma. I'm in trouble. I've been arrested. Talk to my lawyer. Before you get a kind of a chance to recognize or not recognize that voice, they're off the phone. You've been given this terrible news that a loved one is in trouble, in jail, and the brain starts to spiral, and all you want to do is help. So a lot of times people swear up and down that the grandson or granddaughter had said their name. Very, very rarely have we found that they actually offer up the name. It's usually the victim who says, hey, is that you? And with, followed by the name. Scam, it's kind of different shapes and it's morphed over the time. They used to have you send the money. They're actually now having people come to your home, pick up money, usually with a code word. It's usually a color or a number on an envelope. And much like most of these scams, what it is they give you that terrible news or good news if it's a lottery inheritance scam, but then they overwhelm you with information. So the grandparent, it's, hey, your grandchild's been arrested. They put that aside, almost like the shell game where you hide the ball, is put off to the side, and then they just overwhelm you with information. I need $10,000. I need it in certain denominations. I need it in a folder. Folder needs to be 8.5 by 11. Are you listening to me? Write this down. What did I say? What size envelope? They basically overwhelm you with this information that you totally forget what the initial phone call was, other than that you need to go get this money. The perfect example of how psychologically this affects people. We had a lady call in and just to report that she had almost fell victim to this. She got the phone call, thought, my grandchild's in trouble. She said she was driving to the bank. She was halfway to the bank when she realized, what am I doing? I don't have a grandchild. So it just speaks to the fact of how you're just being psychologically dominated from the onset of these phone calls. She was going to get money for her grandson in jail that she didn't have. So it's not to make light of the situation. It's just you're at a disadvantage right away. You're working against teams of professionals with any of these scams. Any question you ask them, any information you want to try and combat, they've heard it. This is their full-time job. They set up, they're usually in rooms. They'll rent houses, what have you, and each room is just, one's the lawyer, one's the grandchild, one might be a police officer. Quite often they'll say there's a gag order. You can't speak about anybody because there's somebody injured. That'll, it'll hinder the case. Your grandchild will be kept in custody. The biggest thing we try and stress with these grandparent scams is, in Canada anyways, very, very, very rarely is there any sort of, they call them gag orders in this, but typically they're only applied to people involved in the case, witnesses, or you'll see media not able to publish names because of certain circumstances. So you just need to know that when they tell you, say, call your family. We've had one of our members, their mother got this phone call, sent some money, but then thought, this is odd, I better call my son. Called him. We were able to at least stop some of the transfer of funds, and that was that simple phone call. Anytime you get any one of these phone calls, we suggest like 10 and 2, right? Take 10 minutes and talk to 2 people, because chances are somebody's probably heard of this, or maybe, fallen victim for it, or has heard a lecture or seen something on the news about it. So just talking to people, sharing this information, me doing a presentation like this to, I've done 10, 15 people all the way up to 1,000 people, is so much more beneficial than me working on one case at my computer. So that's why we do like these information sessions, just to try and get this information out. Because if the 20 people that are here, they go and they speak to 2 or 3 friends each, that 20 quickly grows to 60, 80, 100, couple hundred people catch wind of these types of scams without even having to attend a presentation or hopefully not fall victim. Some of the other scams are very similar in nature. Virus scams they've been around since computers. It's a pop-up and it's a small fee. But what you're doing is you're granting access typically to your computer. And what they want is they'll take over your computer for only minutes sometimes, but they're able to get into your banking, because a lot of people do online banking. It's right on their computers. My biggest suggestion is don't have your when you go to TD Bank for instance, don't have it pre-filled with your debit card or your username and your password. Because if you don't have that information, they're into a guessing game. Very, very unlikely that they will be able to guess your password. But so many people just have it pre-filled. We have so many passwords for everything, dual authentications, whatever. And as long as it's pre-filled, they can get in. If it's not, we have a bit of a fighting chance to thwart off these scams. These people, they're smart, right? Like the CRA scam, they stick with the times. They're not going to try and pull CRA scams when it's not tax time. So, they put that one to the side, and then all of a sudden come January, February, March, as tax season's coming into fruition, they started up with the CRA scam. There's no point calling me today saying, hey, Jeff, you owe money on your taxes. Well, it's already dealt with like 4 months ago, 5 months ago. So just be cognizant of the time of year. If you get old age security, say know what date your OAS comes. And if you're getting a call on a date that doesn't coincide with that, that should be kind of a red flag as to why is this agency calling me? My OAS isn't due for 3 more weeks, right? So the secret shopper, it used to kind of exist where you would go into a store, make some purchases, and you get reimbursed. They've now used it because it's been around for so long. It's now what they do is they'll have you go into a bank. They'll call you and you'll respond maybe to a job letter, and they'll want you to go in as almost like a customer relations for the company, and you'll go to TD and they want you to open up a bank account in your name. So then you rank, how friendly was the teller, cleanliness of the bank, how easy it was, did they ask you certain questions, were you greeted, etc. Then you provide that information back to the scammers. Well, what they want is that empty account. They can start moving money through it without anyone knowing. It's now in my name, say, if I've the one that's opened it up. Unbeknownst to me, they're just laundering money through it, right? So you might not be at a loss in that moment. The problem is if you have that account in your name and money's going through it, there's the potential that the CRA then sees, hey, Jeff, you had this TD account and $2 million passed through it over the course of a year. They want their cut as well. So just be very, very wary of stuff like that. But any of these scams will compromise your identity information, and that's a whole nother type of fraud we'll speak of moving forward here. I don't talk too much about cryptocurrency. There's good and bad. I'm impartial on it. The biggest thing I can stress is just make sure if you're going to invest or dabble in cryptocurrency that it's through legitimate trading companies. You'll get so many too high investments investment returns you know, it's not trending the way it was. So how is this company able to give me 30% returns when, you know, crypto is, you know, 33% of its value this time last year? So the urgency, just be careful. Anytime there's an urgency to make a deal, they want you to act in that moment before you get that chance. Like I said, that 10 and 2, like a steering wheel, take those 10 minutes, hit the pause button, talk to a couple of people, whether they're friends, call the police, your local police agency, check online. Simple Google of these companies will reveal lots of information on all these different you know, scam or fraud awareness websites. At the end of the day, if it's too good to be true, it probably is when it comes to crypto and any investment. Just make sure that you kind of are utilizing the proper chains, the legitimate companies, so to speak. But essentially, yeah, once you send money in crypto, again, it's very, very difficult for law enforcement to track it. It's a digital currency. There's nothing tangible about it. You don't get actual Bitcoins, right? It's just the name of that type of currency. So be very, very cautious when it comes to crypto, and just be, you know, very, very smart with who you're going to trust. Because once you send that money, the chances are, like I said on that second or third slide, the ability for us to track it or get it back is very, very minimal. Phishing scams, we've all gotten these. I'll jump back to this slide in a second, but we've all seen these various text, emails, you know, there's alert here, click this for your login information. And just again, can't stress enough that I don't like to give them credit, these criminals, but they're very, very good with keeping up on the times. You know, the bottom right-hand corner there was this year and a half ago, the Ontario government reissued, or sorry, got rid of all the license plate stickers and reissued refunds to people. Well, they came as, you know, form of a check through regular mail, but all of a sudden these fraudsters thought, hey, here's a good opportunity. We have all these phone numbers that can just be robo-texted, and the second you click on that that link there, takes you either to a fraudulent website to accept the money, where you have to input your information, or you have to grant them access to your device or your computer. The Rogers there, notice the date, July 10th last year. I believe it was July 7th or 8th was the large, I think it was the biggest Canadian history, largest outage for Rogers. It was like almost 20 hours where nobody had any service. Obviously, Rogers credited people for that loss in time, but again, these scammers stick with the times. Out go these messages, do you want your credit? Well, here's the thing, if you're a Rogers customer, Rogers already has your you know, information, if you do direct deposit or direct withdrawal, they already have that information. So why are you asking me if I want my credit? Clearly, I want my money back. You know, I didn't have service for a couple of days, and you should know how to give me my money or credit my account. So all of this just speaks to like fact checking who we deal with, and we do this on a daily basis when there's almost no money involved. You know, the best analogy I give is, you know, you get a knock at the door and the Girl Guides are at your door selling the cookies. So what do you look at? You look, they're in their uniform, they have a wagon with a bunch of boxes of cookies. Maybe it's your neighbor or family member, you know, so you know them. But we do these quick fact checks before we buy a $5 box of cookies. Yet somebody calls us on the phone and just simply says, I'm so-and-so with CRA, or I'm so-and-so with the police, and we just believe them. We don't fact check. And then people are out hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah, we're willing to do it for a $5 box of chocolates, right? So we just need to be better at saying no to people. You don't just have to agree to stuff on the phone, right? Telemarketers use them with caution. We don't be afraid to say no. Hit that pause button. Like I said, I can't stress that enough. But yeah, back to the phishing scams. Again, it's that trickery, right? They typically are pretending to be from a company or an agency that you know, right? It's Rogers, it's the government, it's Netflix, your sign in, it's your bank. They'll look very, very official. Even the links, when you click on them, they have the ability just to mirror the login information. And then once you put it in, obviously they just capture that, they lock you out of your own account. I see a question that just popped up. Go ahead.
So the question is it legal to come door to door and ask for donations, i.e. United Way?
It is certain. I'm not sure on the actual, if there's a statute on or whatever, but the lawful charities can go door to door. I get them all the time too. It used to be UNICEF, I think, when I might be dating myself as well, but you take it around at Halloween. They're always selling those coupon books. So it is. The problem is you need to know, again, it's this fact checking. Before you hand over money to somebody at your door, let's make sure, just because they have a little badge that says I'm with Humane Society, I'm with this agency, like, how do you know? I can print these up online. The internet, we have endless information and images. I could create, anyone in here could create a document that looks like a London Police business card. I'm from the Alzheimer's Society, I'm collecting donations in the area. Like, it's very simple. We just need to do that better fact checking. But yeah, technically not illegal to go door to door. There are certain parameters that I believe they have to work within, i.e., time of day, certain days of the week, etc. Is there another question? So got a couple monitors here, so I'm trying to watch them all.
Just more so a comment off your what you were saying. That's exactly the issue. Is it legit?
Right. So yeah, I mean, if I say it once, I say it 100 times. It's how do we know? I know, I think it's Diabetes Society, they usually will call ahead of time looking for, whether it's old furniture, donations, stuff like that. The door-to-door is very tough. There's no perfect answer that we can give you to say yes or no. It's not kind of that hard line in the sand as to this is how you tell it's a scam, this is not. It's just, don't be afraid to ask questions, right? They're coming to your house or your property, your premises to say, great, you have a Alzheimer's pamphlet, say, and you're taking donations. Well, I can print up, like, just ask those questions. Who's your supervisor? Did you come in a vehicle? What's the contact number? Making that call. It's just that, again, taking that pause, take a few seconds just to pause and think about this. But yeah, there's no way to, without asking the questions, to know for certain, unfortunately, that whether it's legit or not. And we have those calls all the time, people going door to door. Then they realize after the fact, they think about it like, that's strange. They'll make a call to the proper agency and they're like, no, we're not collecting in the area. They'll know right away. If you call the Alzheimer's Society and you're like, hey, there's somebody at my door, chances are they're going to know right away if they are going door to door or looking for donations, or if they even do that type of donation method, right?
There is another question.
Yeah.
Not sure if you're going to speak to this later on, but can you speak to elder abuse? I called the hotline and never received a call back for a senior in need.
So I don't touch too much on it in the general fraud one. Now when she says call the hotline, like with Elder Abuse London Middlesex or Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, or is she referring to London Police? So if we can clarify that.
LPS.
Okay, so typically, again, never say never, never say always, but when you call, leave a message. When I spoke to that, I think it was the second slide where I kind of broke down our unit. It's usually a phone call. I don't know when you call, but typically you should have a phone call back within like 72 hours. I mean, it could be a little bit more if it's a long weekend, like Easter weekend, where we basically work Monday to Friday, day shift hours with no stat holidays or weekends. So if you called like late on a Thursday and no one was in Friday or the Monday, you might not get a call till like the Tuesday or the Wednesday. But you should typically get a call back within a period of time. We have, depending on when this was too, we have kind of morphed into a lot of our frauds being reported online. So if it potentially got lost in transition there, I don't know, without knowing obviously further details, but we can certainly speak to it at the end, obviously, when the recording's off. So, no personal information is put up on here, but I can certainly kind of address that and try and see what's gone on for sure. I kind of answer it for the interim anyways.
Thank you, she says.
Yeah, so if, I can't see who it is because just the way my screen just set up, but if she wants to hang around for a couple minutes after, I can have a quick chat with her, figure out kind of what's gone on, and maybe she might be in the queue to get a call back. Summer holidays are going on right now, so it is a bit lean on staffing, but yeah, we'll certainly, I can discuss it quickly with her at the end for sure. Okay.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Jeff.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So yeah, but again, these phishing scams, it's just that they're just casting that it's not the good kind of phishing. They're casting those lines out there trying to catch somebody. They'll use any sort of line. Again, like I said, it's from a company, it's a person or somebody that you trust. They'll want you to click on links and kind of take control of your computer, or they want that information, to set up accounts or obtain credit in your name. All of those, like I said, lead to identity theft or identity fraud. So tips with identity theft, identity fraud. Safe to say a lot of our information is already out there. With all the data breaches that have occurred over the last handful of years, I think there was a large Toronto investment that just had a very substantial data breach. It was in the news. Before that, there was Capital One, who does all the Costco cards. Desjardins was a big one. Even CRA, I think it was during COVID, had a big breach regarding the CERB payments. So safe to say some of our information's out there, but it's trying to kind of corral it to the point where they can't use it. And by doing some of this stuff, it can help us. Nothing's perfect. No system is perfect, but reconciling our accounts is the biggest. Just knowing what is going on, knowing your balances, knowing your charges, knowing your automatic withdrawals or your automatic deposits. And if you're not using an account, it's just sitting dormant because you've had it, you're like, oh, maybe I'll keep this US account open because but there's no money in it. The dollar's kind of not doing well. I'll just leave it open. Those are just little avenues for fraudsters to potentially access. And you can be in a building, have every window, every door locked except for one. Chances are, you feel pretty secure. No one's going to get into this building. However, someone's going to find that one small crack in the security. So just reconciling accounts, closing accounts, getting rid of cards that you just don't use. There's no point in having them sit there. It's just a potential line for them to grab onto and access, right? Equifax, TransUnion, they're the two biggest credit bureau check companies in Canada. You can call them, you can request a credit check. It'll give the history. So it'll give you attempts, current lines of credit, or, if you have overdue balances, if you have mortgages, whatever. The biggest is you can also place flag on your name, on your information, so that if somebody tries to obtain credit or what have you in your name, you would get a phone call, a text. And I think there's a commercial by one of the larger financial institutions. I think the lady's gardening and gets an alert. Hey, are you trying to pay for this meal in the south of France? I believe it is. And she hits no, and then the credit card that's been skimmed or stolen gets declined at that restaurant. And the fraudsters take off running off down the restaurant and onto the beach. But that's kind of the premise behind it, is you will get an alert. So if somebody's trying to get a credit card at Home Depot or HSBC, it should prompt that flag to say, hey, is that you? Are you trying to get a second mortgage? Are you trying to get a loan for a car? It's just a little bit added layer of protection there. Keeping control of our personal documents, huge. Fortunately, a lot of times with the larger purses or bags, they get left in, say, a shopping cart when you're doing your grocery shopping. And I've seen it as quick as pull the cart up, grab a couple of things off the list off the shelf as somebody walks by and takes the wallet or the purse, right? So you don't know, maybe your wallet's been taken until you go to pay. If you have that tap function on it, you can start getting, multiple purchases in a very, very short period of time. So potentially disabling that tap feature. It's convenient, yes, just to tap your card. You don't have to type in a PIN and insert it. I mean, it takes an extra minute. Again, likelihood of somebody guessing your PIN versus just being able to tap it. Again, bit of peace of mind that I can't stress enough. Report unauthorized activity immediately. Like people will, I'll wait till tomorrow. That's a strange. The quicker you report it, the quicker it can potentially be stopped, reversed, canceled if it's a transfer of funds. But the longer you wait, the less likely it is that the bank can help you, or that the police or investigators can help you out there. I see a question that just popped up.
Yep, just responding to it.
Yep.
Just about some other stuff. So you can keep rolling on.
Gotcha. Perfect. Again, I spoke about it earlier, just treating those telemarketers with caution. Obviously, it exists. People are going to call. They're going to try and solicit business. But again, don't be afraid to say no, right? Like, problem now too, we got to watch is with artificial intelligence. It's out there. It's rampant. It's I don't know the exact number, but it's very small. It's somewhere in the teens. They need about 15, 18, 20 statements from somebody to create a full vocabulary with AI for that person. And there was a podcast by Joe Rogan about a month or two ago. The entire thing was done via AI. Now, mind you, with Joe Rogan, there's so much information out there, right? He's got his own shows. He's been on Fear Factor. He does the UFC fight. So there's enough audio clips out there for him. But when these people call, we need to start thinking and conditioning ourselves, like, instead of playing along with them and think that you're wasting their time, you got to look at it from their way. The longer they keep you on the phone, the more information they can potentially get, right? They want you saying yes, certain numbers. We think, why? Well, when you call now, almost every company you call, it's automated machines, right? Say press 1 or say 1 to get English, say 4 for accounts receivable. So that they want this information and these words, these phrases, because there's that idea they can potentially use them to access your accounts. I know when I call Rogers, my voice is my password sort of thing. It's they have you say a phrase or some words, and then they authenticate your voice to access your account. So this is happening. It's obviously cost effective, but on the other end, it's easier to potentially get into someone's account now. The last point for identity theft, I just wanted to speak with, is keeping our computers, our devices up to date. Anti-malware, system updates, antivirus. I use an iPhone. It seems every couple of days there's an iOS update. The reason is they're trying to plug those holes that these fraudsters, that these criminals have been able to poke into their systems. And I kind of use that giant building. Everything's locked. If there's one window open, these updates, they're just trying to secure or close those windows, those doors, and prevent and help us out. I know it's a bit of a pain to constantly be updating your device or your phone, but it definitely, when you don't get caught up in a scam, it's worth its time for sure. Money mules, essentially, longer the days, or kind of the drug muling, where they would smuggle drugs cross borders on mules. It's the same idea, but they're doing it with money, but they're doing it through accounts, right? It's not somebody packing money on their body and walking it across the border. They're using legitimate law-abiding individuals. They're, those, like I said, most fraud, it's theft with a lie or a smile, right? They have good people who have good credit, clean record, clean banking history to move money for them, right? So it's known as money laundering, which is a crime. Sometimes you don't know you're an unwitting victim or unwitting money mule, where you think like, I'm receiving payment, it's a crypto investment, it's prize winnings. Sometimes they mask it and they have you, hey, if you can do this for me, you keep $100, just if you can move this, we're having issues with this money service or what have you. The problem with this is, again, all this money that's moving through your various accounts, potentially can be seen at the end of the day or at the end of the year, I guess, come tax time by the CRA. And then they come knocking saying, hey, Jeff, again, so you're showing you only made $30,000, but however many hundreds or millions of dollars went through your account. Explain yourself. So quite often these mules don't realize until that point that they're basically involved with, a large organized crime group. They think they're working or they've got a job or it's a little bit extra money. I can do it at home at nights or what have you. So anytime somebody's asking to cash a check or move money for them, again, you got to think the onus is on yourself to know what's going on, right? If you're transferring money from your account to, your spouse or to a family member, obviously you know where the money's coming from. But if I ask you, hey, can you accept this e-transfer from a friend of mine because my banking's messed up, and then take it out and send it by Western Union, you're going to have to potentially account for that money that goes into your account. So again, just hitting that pause button for a second, asking people, saying, hey, I got this strange message or this strange request. What do you think? Chances are someone's probably seen or heard it and is going to say, no, stop. Please don't do that. I put this one up here because we did speak about CRA and stuff, and don't worry about it's blurry. This was the quality of the image, but it's from last year. I've yet to see one here in London. However, it's a notice that's mailed out and it basically mimics the phone call you get from the CRA. However, it's a little bit, we're so conditioned now to not press one. We don't engage these telemarketers, these people trying to scam us on the phone. But it's a different game when you get this envelope in the mail, which we know governments typically operate via, kind of that old school Canada Post method. And you open this up and it's, it looks very official. It's in French and English. It's got a seal on it. Basically, the body of it is just directing you to go to a website, which is the same ones that they would have you do on the phone. It's just more believable now because it's come in the mail. I had one presentation where a lady got something similar. She ended up just shredding it. I was hoping that I could have got a copy just so I can kind of have it to show people, but it's very official looking. And I just put that up there because it's just, again, another mechanism they're trying to use or adapt to kind of commit these frauds. Some of the upticks we're seeing currently, bank investigator, calling with problem with your cards. They want to get into your accounts. We've had a couple calls where they're saying, hey, we know this scam exists. I'm not going to ask you for any information. We're going to send somebody around to your house to do the change out of the card. Again, it's new. So we think, okay, well, they're telling me about this scam that I know about and it's happening. They're aware of it. And now they're trying to prevent it. So they're coming to my house. It makes it a little bit more believable. But again, call the bank. Back of every card has the emergency number, the contact for, I think, customer relations or customer service or to report lost card. Use the proper numbers. Don't just believe the number or the information they're telling us. And just think back to that example I keep giving of the Girl Guide cookies, right? We're fact checking that we're actually buying Girl Guide cookies for $5. Why am I giving my debit card or my credit card or my information to somebody who I do not know? They're just telling me that they're with this company or with this bank. I did speak with the grandparent scams. Like I said, last year, we probably had 60 reports in a couple of weeks span. There was a few arrests in neighboring jurisdictions. And then they kind of, again, bunch of media releases. They kind of tapered off. But again, they're still happening. We will probably see spikes again when people let their guards down. Crypto is ever, it's always there. It's ever being for every scam. The spoofed CFC is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, and we've started to see a few spoofed emails and phone calls, people purporting themselves to be from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center, and that your name has come up in an investigation they're working on, and they want information or whatever. So just be wary that simply because the number showing up on your phone or the email address says it looks like it's this company or that company, you can spoof them very easy. There's programs out there to make it, you can basically make up any phone number you want, change the call displays. We've had people say they've received a call and when they look at it, it's their own phone number coming up. So it's just, again, confusion. They can spoof them. I think a lot of companies now, I know my some of my phones will get, or some of my phone calls I'll get, it'll say likely spam. So the companies are doing a good job. The problem is cheaters are always kind of ahead of the game. We're always trying to play catch up. So just be very aware. Just cannot believe it just simply because they're saying it or you're seeing it on a phone. Sextortion's another huge fraud one right now. 90% are male victims. It's usually through a chat site where you're talking. You end up sending either, you know, some compromising images or videos. It's captured, and then immediately you're getting that message. They've already copied your contact list, and they want money, or else they're going to leak the, you know, the image or the video or whatever it is. So people are fearful. You pay the money, then it's more money, then it's more money, it's more money. The problem when you pay the money, we say never to pay it. It's similar to an extortion. Is there's no tangible item there, right? If you steal my skateboard and you return it and I'm willing to pay you, and I give you $20, I actually get my skateboard back. But these images, they can be copied, they can duplicate. There's no real way to know that it's been deleted. So all they're doing is they're just going to keep paying or asking for money. You keep paying. There's no assurance that video or that image is ever going to be removed, deleted, or not passed on, right? It's just a mechanism to get that money, keep it moving. Biggest question we get asked, I went the wrong way, sorry. Spoke about it, restitution, am I going to get my money back? I gave you the stats, unfortunately, early on. It's such a small percentage. Restitution can be ordered through courts. However, must have charges laid, must know the suspect, obviously, to lay these charges. There's Civil Remedies Act and civil lawsuits suing somebody. But again, you have to know the suspect. So if you don't know who it is because it's a phone call or it's an email, it's tough to then start to request money back from somebody, right? Let alone having the police know who it is, lay the charge, get a conviction, etc. The last point I put on there, I've yet to experience this. One of my partners here in the office had a female victim, elderly. She gave away a significant amount of money to a grandparent scam. She ended up calling him back several weeks or a month later saying, hey, I got most of my money back. And he was kind of perplexed, right? I just told you we don't get money back. She got it back through her home insurance policy. She had a built-in something regarding fraud. So she had to pay her $1,000 deductible and got $39,000 back of the $40,000. So I don't know if it can be something that you add as a premium or if it's just built in for certain things, but something worthwhile to look into. Like I said, this is the one success story I've heard. It's very similar to credit cards. They're fully insured. So if you're ripped off via credit card online, a lot of the times you have the opportunity to get that money back through Visa, MasterCard, American Express, whoever. Just to piggyback off restitution, why it's so little that we get. Before I see a question there before I dive down some of the difficulties we have.
The question, it was really a comment, and it said, wow, amazing, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're talking about the home insurance. Is that what we're kind of alluding to, I guess?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was the same way when he told me. I almost fell out of my chair, right? I was like, wow, it's amazing. I mean, obviously that individual got their money back, or 99% of it, but it's worthwhile looking into. Again, I don't know if it's something that she just happened to have, her broker happened to put in because of her age, maybe she lived alone, who knows, but something at least to look into if you have that ability to do it. But that's, one success story is better than none. So I kind of pass that information on because it was new to myself. And like I said, I've been at this job for my 5th year and 23 years plus of policing now. So definitely we do like the success stories for sure. difficulty with these investigations, right? Any fraud, so to speak. I opened with it. This is a global issue. This is not just somebody making fake $5 bills and trying to pass them out to get free Tim Hortons coffees. This is a global issue. The problem is now we have less personal interaction, not only with the fraudster, but just people in general. You know, I'm still of an age, I can remember taking my bank book, going to the bank and updating it. The tellers knew who you were. There was a whole bank of, 10 or 12 tellers. They knew your family. They knew, everything about you, saying, hi, hey, how's mom and dad, Jeff, etc. Now you go in, there might be one or two tellers and it's a whole bank of machines, right? So less interaction, less protection even when we go potentially into bank, because maybe I go to a machine, I'm not going to a teller who knows me. I go to a machine, the machine doesn't know, they just give me all the money I asked for, right? So following the money, if this makes sense, is both easier but harder than ever. And that's, like we said, through the use of money mules, cryptocurrency. We can see money moving about, but then it leaves the country, gets put into crypto, gets moved between multiple cryptocurrency wallets. So it gets very challenging to kind of piece together where the money's moving, where it's going. And then, like I said, often the money gets sent out of the country. It really hinders our investigative ability when it leaves Canada. I tell the story, even within our own country, province to province, we have some challenges. I sent a message, it's over, takes 6 months, 8 months to hear back from sometimes an agency in another jurisdiction or another province. So it is challenging. It's made our job definitely harder. And then I think with COVID, a lot of stuff turned into online, right? We do Zoom, much more Zoom. I don't think I did a single Zoom meeting or webinar presentation in 20 plus years of policing, and then over the last 3 years with COVID and stuff, it's become the norm, right? Office spaces are getting closed up. We can now meet from anywhere in the world via a computer and a internet hookup, right? So, excuse me. So it's very, very difficult. So how do we protect ourselves? I've given you a whole bunch of information, what not to do, what to look out for. We want to protect you guys, protect everybody. But at the end of the day, we got to think, all or almost all these frauds require some sort of assistance from us as the victim, right? We have to provide maybe a card, access to our device, our bank information. We have to maybe willfully give them the money because it's that theft with a lie, right? We need to start recognizing, rejecting, reporting. The 3 R's, that's right from the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. We need to start recognizing that this is a fraud. It's a 10 and 2 approach. Take 10 minutes and talk to 2 people. Reject it, don't fall for it, and then we need to report it. I spoke about 5 to 10% of frauds get reported. I mean, upwards of 90-95% of frauds are never reported us. It could be twists on it. There could be new frauds, and if we don't know about them, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center doesn't know about them. It's tough for us to get them, the education piece out there, speak about these types of frauds, or try and put together presentations to alert the masses. This is a new scam. This is what's kind of going on. Like I said, education by far the best strategy. Me talking to a room of individuals is far better, in my opinion, than working on one case at a time or a couple of cases at a time, because if I can prevent it or limit it, that's a win for most of us. Again, third point there is the verification, right? We just need to know you're dealing with the actual company. Check the number, check that website properly. Don't just believe who they say they are. I just see a question pop up there. Excuse me.
Yeah, so the question is the best link to report scams?
So I'm just fighting some allergies here. It's ragweed season, they tell me. So so if you're not falling victim, the best place to report if you're not victimized is the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. There's the links right on their website. I have a slide at the end, which I said I'll pass to Jessica. It's got a bunch of contact phone numbers and companies, CIFC is on there. That's the best thing, because Jeff Johnson sitting here at his desk can't take down phone numbers that these people are using, but Canadian Anti-Fraud Center has that capacity, and they've had success with at least starting to shut down some of these numbers and how they get used, and identifying them, like I spoke about, as spam phone numbers or likely fraud I've seen on my phone before when it calls. So best is to report there if you're not the victim. If you're the victim, 100% you need to report that to law enforcement. You need to report in the jurisdiction you live. Even if the fraud happens elsewhere, you have to report where you reside. That agency will collect everything from you and then pass it on to the proper agency. It just keeps a better carriage of what's going on. I hope that kind of answers it. The phone one here is a big one. If you're contacted by phone and you want to do these, you said, hey, Jeff's been stressing it, 10-2, hang up, call that institution, call that agency. If you can, from a different phone. So if they call you on your cell phone and you still have a landline, or your spouse or your partner has a phone, use their phone, because there is technology out there that they can keep that line open. And with cell phones now, there's no dial tone. Like normally you pick up your landline, you listen for the dial tone, you dial the number. Well, on the cell phone, you might think you've hung up with the fraudster. You type in your number, you hit send. Hello, oh, there's somebody there right away. It's just them. They just haven't released that line. I know that ability is out there. There's programs to do it. So yeah, if you can, if you live in a building, maybe go to your neighbor and say, hey, Jeff, can I borrow your phone? I got this really strange phone call. I just want to verify who's calling or who's not calling me. And then call from that different number. Before you give money or information, again, I've said it, it's like a broken record. Run it by a friend, local anti-fraud resources, so police, the website, Canadian Anti-Fraud Center. Just trusting your intuition, right? Quite often we speak to the victims, unfortunately, and like it just didn't sound right. But I thought my grandson was in jail, and I needed to send that money, but it didn't sound right. It didn't really sound like him. Like, again, it's just asking that question, taking that quick pause. But bottom line is we just have to be suspicious, right? We don't have to be paranoid. We just need to be suspicious and know that these individuals are out there trying to steal our money, and at an alarming rate over the last handful of years. So just thinking ahead, next time you get that call, like what are you gonna say? How much information are you willing to give out? After, I've just told you, let's make sure we know who we're talking to. Could be the best sounding sales pitch ever. Let's just make sure we know who we're talking about. Again, you're working against these paid actors, right? They know the script, they know the lines, they know everything that's going to take place except for your small portion. So let's be prepared, right? They're always looking for that weakness, right? Human virtues. We're all sympathetic. We're all very trusting individuals. Just don't be a victim, right? That security scam or that scam they're pulling right now might get a small amount of money, but it's also they're just steal my personal information, and commit those ID thefts, those ID frauds. Question I see.
Just saying great takeaways. Thank you, Jessica and Jeff. Wonderful,
thank you. Couple slides. What to do. I've done a terrible job today if one of us falls victim. But biggest is stay calm. It's very upsetting. We understand that. I've taken the phone call and the victim on the phone's swearing at me, calling me every name in the book, like I'm the one who's stolen their money. It's human nature. It's anger. It's all the stages of grief, so to speak. But got to stay calm, gather that information, and then everyone wants to call the police first. Call your institution first, call the bank, call the credit card company, get those flags placed on your accounts, change passwords, get a hold of the Equifax TransUnion, then call the police, right? Because once you send that money, if you spend 20, 30, 40 minutes speaking to the police on the phone, whatever, that money's being moved. You send and do that transaction, think, oh no, what have I done? You call your bank right away. There is the ability potentially to have that frozen or reversed. but the longer you wait, the less and less chances that you get your money back, right? So obviously calling the police. Our number will be on one of the last slides, and then we also at londonpolice.ca website to report frauds. You can go right on there, you click it, you fill out the forms, you can report the fraud there. Because as I did mention, we're only Monday to Friday kind of daytime hours. So, you know, if this fraud happens at 8 at night or 4 o'clock on a Friday, and don't wait till Monday to report it, like get that report going, call the police station, whatever you can do to try and get that information going. But definitely call the institution first, tell them right away what's happened, be up in front and honest, don't be ashamed, don't be embarrassed. You withhold information to them, they can't really help you either, right? So this stat here boggled my mind. It's 100% true. Beware of recovery scams. We've seen people targeted 2, 3, even 4 times promising of recovery of this money lost. Just revert back to that slide that I showed you, very, very little amount of, you know, money is located and returned. So why am I, you got to think, why am I the 1 or 2 people a year that get their money located, found and returned? Question.
Yeah, so it's just 1 o'clock now, so
Yep.
we're just gonna have to wrap things up, but
Sure.
there's one more question we can answer live. And
definitely.
for anyone who didn't get to ask a question, please do so now. And Jeff will be happy to address that via email. So the question is, you mentioned people's homes being sold out from under them. How can this happen?
So, in a lot of those home sales, one of the participants, you know, lawyer or the realtor, needs to kind of be, I'll say, in on it or a little bit negligent in their work. So, all the banks, they have the KYC, right? Knowing your client, know your customer. That goes for lawyers, for, you know, mortgage brokers, realtors. But quite often is one of the parties involved will be pulling the scam, and they'll just vouch, so to speak, that, oh yes, I've known Jeff, known him for 100 years. I've done, you know, 30, 40 properties for him. That's him. He's good to go. He's selling the home. I might, you know, real Jeff might be in Florida. That's typically how they happen, is when you've vacated your property. The handful that happened in Toronto last year, where people returning, you know, they snowbirded down into Florida for a period of time, come back to find somebody living in their house, and the person's bought the house, you know, quasi legitimately, or so they think. It's just the paperwork, the one of those parties has, you know, doctored information or you know, sworn information that is in fact false. And then it's a bit of a conundrum, obviously, to get your home back, right? Title insurance, make sure you have it on your home if you have mortgage and stuff. Does assist you, because it is very costly to try and fight that battle, right? Legal fees and stuff to get your home back. The title insurance does aid you with that assistance. That basically it guarantees that your title or your deed to your house is secure, kind of, in so to speak. So it shouldn't get sold out from underneath you. Just this is the slide here, Jessica. I'll send you that after, and you can feel free to disperse it as you wish. It's got a bunch of numbers and contact. The final slide I would leave people with, if they just want to read it, spoke about it the whole time. They all have the same signs, 4 common signs, right, for frauds. And with that, yeah, if we can wrap up, and I'll stay on here once you close out, if anyone's got some you know, personal or specific questions they want to ask.
Perfect, thanks, Jeff. So just a couple more housekeeping items. Our next webinar, you can sign up for e-newsletter to get notified about upcoming educational events. So you can simply scan that QR code there, or you can click on the link as well. And then last but not least, thank you guys for joining us today. So be sure to leave the click icon on your screen if you don't have any further questions. And when you do that, a short evaluation will pop up. So if you can complete that and just give us some feedback, that would be great. So I'd like to thank Jeff Johnson from London Police Services for his wisdom on frauds and scams, awareness and prevention. And again,